What's going on, guys? Austin here, and in this video, we are going to be taking a look at Overreaction Monday on a Tuesday. How are we supposed to react to some of these games? So, the first game, one of the biggest games that I want to look at, is the Dolphins sneaking past the Bills. Somehow they safetied themselves up four with like a minute left and still ended up winning the game. Are the Dolphins a Super Bowl contender? We see Tua did not have a fantastic game, but he's still having a fantastic season. The Dolphins only had 212 yards of total offense, but they had 4 sacks, whereas the Bills seem to have everything that they wanted offensively besides scoring. See right here, Josh Allen had 400 yards, only 2 touchdowns. He led the team in rushing yards, and he had several players over 50 receiving yards. But like I said, only 2 scores. So the story of this game is a sluggish Miami defense or sluggish Miami offense and a competent Miami defense. I did not expect them to be as great of a defensive team without the brain trust that is Brian Flores and his ability to put players in the right position. So what I'll say is it's no big deal, but if the Dolphins continue to play defense on this level, then it's going to start to be time to worry. All right, so the Jags, they beat the brakes off the Chargers 38-10. My question last week was, are the Jags legit? Now is it, will the Jags win the AFC South? Trevor Lawrence had a very good game. James Robinson, super efficient on the ground. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, they looked amazing. The defense had a sack, a fumble recovery, and an interception. Herbert is hurt, but moreover than that, the offensive line lost Rashawn Slater. The weapons, Keenan Allen wasn't there. Not a great look for the team. The Chargers haven't played a fully healthy game yet, and I doubt that they will at all this season because of the loss of Rashawn Slater. But the question is, will the Jags win the AFC South? And my standpoint is still no big deal. Right now, the Jags have 2 wins. Now, one of them is a divisional win over the Colts. That's a big deal. But both the Colts and the Titans each have 1 win. Now, obviously, the Texans are 0-2-1, but they don't have a 3-0, record. They're not, 2.5 or 1.5, whatever you want to call it, games up in their division. So right now, the Titans and the Colts both have better rosters, better offensive lines. I'd say comparable overall skill players. I think the Jags actually might have the best collection of weapons in this division. But the coaching, it's starting to take a step up. It's really their defense that's winning them this game. But until further notice, we're not going to sell out on the Jags winning this division just yet. Now, the Panthers beat the Saints 22-14. If you watched this game, you're either addicted to gambling or you have an intense love for the game of football in its purest form, because all you care about is just watching the sport itself. There was nothing good about this game besides the defense. Jameis Winston played awful. I see that he had 353 yards. He played garbage. Baker Mayfield, his stats show that he played like garbage. The one bright spot in this game, the 2 running backs, Alvin Kamara, CMC, both facing a little bit of issues. Kamara, he's a little bit banged up. CMC, he hasn't been banged up this season, but they've been limiting his usage, I think, in the hopes to keep him from getting banged up. But, he's been averaging, about 20 carries and, 90, 100 yards a game. So that's really nice on his standpoint. But the question is, are Jameis and Baker holding their teams back? And what I ask by this is, if these teams had a quarterback like Jared Goff or middle of the pack Tua, middle of the pack Mac Jones, middle of the pack Kirk Cousins, would they be better? And the answer is clearly and obviously yes. You have to sell these quarterbacks. I mean, look at these stat lines. With the type of weapons that the Saints have, they have Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Marquez Callaway. They've got Alvin Kamara, and they've got Mark Ingram, all on the Saints. Then the Panthers have fantastic defense. They've been playing so well all year. I love CJ Henderson, love JC Horn. Love the big guys up front. They're not as talented, as other defenses are, but they're playing better than I thought they would. And both of these teams just need accurate quarterbacks to get the balls to the weapons. And neither of these quarterbacks are good at that. Jameis is more like a Brett Favre type of player. I mean, he's honestly like, great value brand, Brett Favre. And Baker Mayfield, I don't even know what you'd want to call him. He's basically like baby Jameis Winston, just like smaller Jameis. These quarterbacks are holding their teams back. I think that the Saints would win the division if they had Jared Goff at quarterback, and I think they would win the division running away if they had Jared Goff at quarterback, which just goes to show you how far Winston, I feel, is dragging this team down. Sell the quarterbacks. Now, Lamar and the Ravens leap past the Patriots 37-26. Now, Matt gets hurt in the game, but at that point, the game was pretty much over. I mean, they beat them by 11, but really throughout the whole way, the Ravens were just leading, and then eventually the Patriots kept coming back. So the question is, can Lamar carry the Ravens to the Super Bowl? Now, the defense had 3 sacks and the defense had 4 turnovers, but they still gave up 26 points in 3.5 quarters, which is more than what you'd want in the middle of a blowout against a team that doesn't really have weapons and their top wide receiver is out. Can Lamar carry the Ravens to the Super Bowl? I think he can, but the defense needs to get right. Mostly they need to get healthy. Marlon Humphreys, Marcus Peters. I think Marcus Peters played. I don't know if he did, but the whole secondary is basically banged up. Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame, he's going to need to find his role in this defense. Now he's making the transition from Notre Dame Brian Kelly to Mike McDonald, the former Michigan defensive coordinator. So there should be some level of understanding as to where his skill set is, because he has the ability to be the best defensive player on this team, but he just needs to realize it. As far as the offense goes, Lamar is doing a great job at turning bum wide receivers into single game stars, whether it's Rashad Bateman or Devin Duvernay. He's finding these guys. Isaiah Likely, the Coastal Carolina tight end that got drafted in the 6th round of the Ravens. I actually love him. And then by the end of the season, they're going to have the Michigan defensive end. Can't think of his name right now, but he got injured and his pro day, and that should make them better come playoff time if he's available. So I'd say it's time to worry. This team has enough pieces to build a solid foundation that Lamar can pull them into that Super Bowl contender category. They don't have as good of a roster as the Chiefs. They don't have as good a roster as the Chargers. Nowhere near the roster that the Bills do. But after that, I mean, it's kind of like them, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Browns. They're all kind of in this category. But the difference is going to be this quarterback is playing for this team all season. And right now he is the MVP. The Vikings come back on Lions 28-24. They lead the NFC North. That was a fantastic game. If you like watching good football, that was a Lions kind of beating the Vikings early, starting to lead out heavy front runners. And then the Vikings, just kind of systematically brought their way back into the game. A couple key stops, a couple missed kicks helped them along the way, but still a very good game of football. You see the quarterbacks, they had good quarterback stat lines, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns for Cousins, 277 yards for Goff, a touchdown and an interception. That's really what good football is. If you have 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, to me it just feels like there was a mismatch. But this was just a great football game. The Lions, DeAndre Swift, a little banged up. He ended up having to leave the game, while Jamal Williams ended up, coming in and having a really good game on his own. Dalvin Cook, I would say this was somewhat of a coming out party for him. He's been really slow this season. Now, Justin Jefferson got absolutely shut down by Jeffrey Okudah. Okudah had, 50% of the snaps was covering Justin Jefferson, and he got targeted 6 times for 3 receptions, 9 yards, and a 53% passer rating, which is not 53%, 53 passer rating, which is just atrocious. Now, at the same time, Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne ended up having their great games. Both teams had only 1 defensive play in the entire game. Alex Anzalone had a sack for the Lions. and Metellus had that game-saving interception on Goff to end the game. But the question is, are the Vikings the NFC North favorites? And the answer is no. I'm gonna say there's no big deal. I like the Vikings more than I did last year. I still don't believe in their offensive line. I don't fully believe in their defense yet. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the Lions are a better football team, and I think certainly the Packers are a better football team. As soon as Aaron Rodgers and these young receivers, specifically Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Allen Lazard, as soon as they all get on that same page of what their role is in this offense, I think the league is going to have a problem trying to guard them because they're going to be one of the most different teams, not difficult, but different teams, and that is what makes them hard to game plan for. So, as far as the Vikings are concerned, I like them, not enough to say that they're the NFC North favorites. The Eagles beat up the Commanders 24-8, same way that they beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-7. The only team that they haven't beat up that they played this year was the Lions. They ended up just barely winning. I think that one was 38-35 or something like that. But the 3-0 Eagles, are they the best team in the league? They have an absolute domination of two teams, the Commanders and the Vikings, who I predicted would either be in the playoffs or be in playoff contention as far as the Vikings are concerned. I don't know. I can't remember if I had them in. And then they barely snuck past the Lions, who I also think are a 8, maybe even 9-win team. But Hurts had 360 total yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, another fantastic game. Devontae Smith had the game 1 A.J. Brown stat line with 8 receptions, 170 yards, and a touchdown. Just absolutely blew them out. On the other side, Carson Wentz had 233 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. He was sacked 9 times in this game, which is an unbelievable amount of pressure. Antonio Gibson had 12 carries for 38 yards and the lone touchdown of the Commanders. Terry McLaurin had his 102 yards, which was good for them. But there was no answer that the Commanders' offensive line had for the Eagles' front seven. And so, all of you guys know, if you watch, I'm a fan of Carson Wentz, and I do not believe that he deserves any of the type of disrespect that y'all give him. Honestly, Jameis Winston is the guy that you all think Carson Wentz is. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, Carson Wentz is closer to Patrick Mahomes than he is to Jameis Winston. And I will stand by that until I can see something that would make me believe otherwise. Getting sacked 9 times will not make me believe that you are a bad quarterback. But that being said, are the 3-0 Eagles the best team in the league? And I'm saying it's time to worry. Now, I've got my power rankings that are going to be coming out after this. I've got them posted on Twitter. They're going to be on Instagram. They're going to be posted to TikTok. But will you be able to see where I've got the Eagles? Are they going to be at the number 1 spot? Can they supplant the Bills and the Chiefs, who are the only 2 teams above them from last week? Maybe, maybe not. But for sure, it's time to worry. Now, the Chiefs lose 20-17 against a winless Colts team. Can the Colts mount an AFC South comeback? Matt Ryan was not particularly impressive. He had 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were mostly dead throughout the entire game. And the Chiefs, most of their miscues all really happened on special teams. Now, the offense was a little bit slow. They really couldn't get any sort of a running game in. You look across the board, there was no real, especially great performances. Maybe the Chiefs defense getting 5 sacks against what I would call a good offensive line, for sure top 10. But can the Colts mount an AFC South comeback? I'm going to say it's time to worry. Once we get them all together, once we get Shaquille Leonard, Darius Leonard. Once we get Shaquille Leonard back on the field, we're going to see a different offense. Once we get Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce and Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line all working together, all clicking together. Can this be the best team in the AFC South? It's possible. In my opinion, it's going to be between them and the Titans. We all heard about, the Jags and the mess that they're causing. They could be 3-0. They're 2-1. But I'm going to say it's time to worry because the Colts are an incredible front-running team. If they have a lead, it's very hard for you to get to get back out ahead on them. I didn't like the move to get Matt Ryan, but we'll see if it ends up paying off. Now the Packers barely sneak past the Bucks 14-12. They had an 8-point lead with about 2 minutes left. Their defense just seemed to just stop playing. Brady drove down after playing awfully, like just awful football the entire game. He just drove down for an easy touchdown on that final drive. But he had some like situational miscues where he should have got a delay of game on the play that resulted in the touchdown. And he did get a delay of game on the 2-point conversion. Now you look at these stat lines, obviously nothing super impressive. I mean, 270 yards and a touchdown seems good, but not when you can't get the ball, into field goal range. They were really struggling on that standpoint all day. The Bucks had 2 field goals. The Packers had 2 touchdowns. Now, Aaron Rodgers had his 2 touchdowns, the 100-some yards in those first 2 drives. Aaron Jones, he hands it off, fumbles on the goal line. Could have gone up 21-3, but ended up giving the Bucks the ball back. And from there on out, the Packers offense kind of shut down. Now, I'm not worried about the Packers offense. I know eventually it is going to figure itself out. But what I did like to see is that the Packers defense is somewhat finding their footing. Now, they did get busted up on that last drive, and the Bucks are not a healthy football team fully. But the Packers need to start implementing better defensive packages because they have all of the pieces to be the best secondary and the best front seven in the entire National Football League, and they just have yet to play like it. So are the Bucks in trouble? I'm saying sell the team. I think the Packers are good but not great at this point, and somehow they still managed to stop the Bucks from scoring 15 points. And I get the wide receivers aren't there, but that's what you get when you have, an injury-prone Julio Jones and an injury-prone Chris Godwin and banged-up offensive line and Mike Evans, who's a punk that just likes to take cheap shots at defensive backs. You are not going to have a fully present offense. Gronk is gone. O.J. Howard is gone. It's just Brady, and Brady is not a good enough quarterback to carry a team by himself. This defense is fantastic. This defense is absolutely fantastic. If you want to win anything of consequence this year, you need to sell the entire future and mortgage everything on making this year, this team better, because it is not going anywhere besides a potential wild card loss if they even make it that far. Now, the Rams beat the Cardinals 20-12. Can the Rams compete in the NFC? So far, they have not looked great. You see the stat lines up here. The defense has not been fantastic yet. I see that they only gave up 12 points. They did not look great. The offense put up 20 points. Not a great outlook. I've been worried about the Rams all year, ever since their week 1 meltdown. Not even a meltdown, ever since their week 1 collapse. Especially from the offensive line standpoint. Stafford has not looked like a good quarterback. He still has a negative touchdown to interception ratio. And so, for that reason, for the first time, I'm saying it's time to worry. I get that they have 2 consecutive wins. Still time to worry. I do not like the outlook of this team as long as the offensive line has yet to figure it out, as long as Stafford, his arm isn't right, and as long as the defense is not playing its best football. Now, the Broncos slugged past the 49ers in one of the worst football games ever put on national television, 11-10. Do the Broncos have an offensive problem? Now, everyone's going to blame Nathaniel Hackett. Now, the funny thing is, last year, the Seahawks had DK Metcalf and Will Dissly and Gerald Everett and Tyler Lockett and Rashad Penny and an okay offensive line and decent defensive players, but not a great defense. And they were a bad team. This year, they're about the same team with Geno Smith. And the Broncos, who were supposed to, be world beaters with Russell Wilson, are one of the best defenses in the league and one of the absolute worst offenses in the league. There's almost no bright side on this team except for the fact that they don't have their top 3 wide receivers all healthy. Tim Patrick got hurt before the season. And you want Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick all playing, that would be a great outlook. Unfortunately, they don't have that. They punted the ball 10 times. You don't pay a quarterback $250 million, have them punt. Your offense punt 10 times in a game where if you bet the under on a 22 point over under, you bet the under, you would have won that bet. The Broncos absolutely have an offensive problem, and they need to figure it out now. Otherwise, they are going to realize that they are on the hook for $250 million to a declined asset, not a declining asset, a declined asset already there. Now the Cowboys barely beat the Giants 23-16. There was a chance for the Giants to kind of ice this game. They couldn't complete drives in the very end, and Cooper Rush ended up leading the comeback to score, to go up. And my question is Dak Prescott going to get Tony Romo'd? Is a backup quarterback going to come in? Now, Cooper Rush is 3-0. Last year, he beat the Vikings in Minnesota. This year, he beat the defending AFC champion Bengals, and now he beat the divisional rival, the 2-0 Giants. If Cooper Rush keeps playing like this, there are going to be conversations. But realistically, it's no big deal. Cooper Rush is not a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, but what we are seeing, not for the first time, because it's always been apparent if you pay attention, but what's now apparent for the first time ever is that Dak Prescott was not a quarterback carrying the offense. The offense was a collection of weapons that was carrying Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott's better, but he's also getting paid a lot more money, and he's not that much better. To me, Dak Prescott is somewhere around the 14th to 17th best quarterback in the league. There's been talk of him being top 10 at certain points, and there was never a chance that Dak Prescott was going to be top 10 quarterback. But even with the offensive line deficiencies, Jason Peters is on the team. He's not playing. Tyron Smith, he's completely out. Lyle Collins is gone. The center that they had for years is gone. And somehow they're still managing to find ways to put together wins. In fact, the only quarterback on this roster who's lost a game is Dak Prescott in a game in which he scored, I believe, 9 points only on field goals. So, like I say, it's no big deal. But Dak Prescott, without even playing, is kind of getting exposed right now. So those are the Overreaction Monday on a Tuesday. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts and stay up to date on all of our future content.